ISIS is now clearly the most dangerous foe America, nay, the world has ever faced. More dangerous than Saddam Hussein and the Iraqi army, worse than the Soviets or the Nazis, worse than Darth Vader and the entire intergalactic empire. You should fear them. This is all coming not from me, but from the Secretary of Defense, Chuck Hagel. He's going to lay out in the video that you're about to see how dangerous they are and what we should do to contain them, if it's even possible.
They're beyond just a terrorist group. They marry ideology, a sophistication of strategic and tactical military prowess. Oh, this is beyond anything that we've seen. So we must prepare for everything. And the only way you do that is you take a cold, steely, hard look at it and get ready.
Yeah, they've trained with Slytherin, and they are coming for us.
Yes,
so they're very dangerous, obviously. He's very concerned about it, but it's not just Chuck Hagel. There have been a number of members of, what used to be the organized neocons back during the last Iraq War. Like, they're coming out of the woodwork again to hype up the threat of ISIS and get us ready, perhaps, for large-scale military intervention.
Wait, neocons are trying to fearmonger about a terrorist group.
They're trying a new tactic.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, here's a twist in this story, and this is where it gets interesting. He's a little bit right.
Yeah, he is. I mean, this isn't like Dianne Feinstein saying there are terrorists out there with bombs, really big bombs.
Right.
Yeah.
That go boom.
Yeah, that go boom. I mean, there is some legitimacy to what he's saying, but the question is, what should the U.S. reaction be to it?
Okay, so no one has an answer to that except for one person, and you're looking at him.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, so here's
I have an answer.
I was please. Okay. So I was listening to the radio earlier today, and one of the hosts asked one of the commentators, experts, like, "So what should we do?" And she literally went, yeah. Okay. And then she was like, "Oh, it's complicated. It's nuanced." I don't know, right? So, okay, we're going to do John's ideas first. I'll do mine second. But first, look, all kidding aside, the reason why they're so dangerous, and remember, Hagel barely voted for the Iraq War. He's a Republican. He was a Republican senator, right? But he's like, oh, this is not a good idea. All right, fine. Like all other times, I'm going to vote with Bush anyway, okay? So it's not like Hagel and Obama want to go back into Iraq. Historically, they have not wanted to go there. They had a funny way of showing it sometimes, obviously, right? So they're not part of the neocons. The neocons are pushing in that direction, and this is a manna from heaven for them. Oh, a really bad guy that's taken over territory, terrific. So now, the real reason why they're bad. Al-Qaeda did not have territory. Okay, now think about how important this is, okay? So they had to constantly be asking people for things. Hey, Taliban in Afghanistan, can we just kind of like hang out on your couch for a while, right? Hey, rich Saudi dudes, can we grab a couple of million or billion off of you so we can conduct our affairs? Now, ISIS at this point has territory. And not only, it doesn't have to ask for permission, it's its own boss, right? Not only do they have territory, they have resources, infrastructure, and permanent level resources, because they have oil. They took over banks. They have cold hard cash, hundreds of millions of dollars in cash, right? So they don't need to ask anybody for anything. And they're going old Mongol style. So they're not doing the beheadings on YouTube and the amputations on Twitter by accident. It's by design. It is to intimidate the locals twofold. Intimidate the locals trying to resist them, to the point where, like the Mongols did in the old days, where people just bow their heads. Okay, hey, whatever you do, don't chop my head off. Okay, you win, you win. Remember, they went into Mosul with only 800 guys, and they beat an army of 30,000, partly because the Iraqi army was scared out of their minds. And then secondly, it's victory begets victory, and they've already gotten a lot of victories. So now they're getting, so Muslims for so long, even if they wanted to be radicalized, obviously this doesn't apply to 99% of Muslims who are just, people's moms, right? Okay, but for the people who are angry and who want to do something and fight the West and fight the power, but in a violent way, they really had no realistic outlet. You can go blow yourself up with Al-Qaeda, but what was it going to do? You knew that you weren't going to win. With ISIS, they have won. They have won battles. They have won territory. They have wiped out a border. They now control land in Syria and Iraq. So it is gathering up Muslims who were ready to be radicalized. Again, it's a small number, but it's a pretty decent sized army when you gather up those people, because even the smallest percentage of Sunni Muslims can get you a big number. So now they grow and they grow. So it is a real issue.
So going back to the comment you made about locals joining ISIS because of that intimidation and that fear, how much of it is also attributed to the fact that, the locals might be disillusioned or, upset with U.S. foreign policy? So in a lot of ways, our response to terrorism, internationally is also helping ISIS's cause.
So a couple of important notes there. First of all, a lot of the former Iraqi military, including high-level trained officers, have joined ISIS now. They did not join other forces earlier. They are only joining now because victory begets victory, and they're excited and they're like, we're winning. Yeah, I'm in, okay? Those guys used to be secular. They're now with a group so radical, Al-Qaeda disowned them. And why is that? Because we blundered into Iraq. But let's review the really important facts here. Before we went into Iraq, no connection to Al-Qaeda. Now we have a group worse than Al-Qaeda that has a significant chunk of Iraq and has the former Iraqi military or a lot of its top commanders with them. It is a debacle of epic proportions. I'm not just saying that, it's not a hyperbole. It is a historic mistake what we did in Iraq. We have created something worse than Al-Qaeda, and now it has accumulated power.
Well, look, that's the main reason that I was mocking Chuck Hagel. I didn't mean to imply that he was allied with the neocons from the last time around. But when he talks about how big of a threat they are and how we need to take, a steely look at it and do something, well then what is that supposed to lead us to do beyond the limited number of troops that we've sent back into Iraq and the airstrikes that we've been conducting in North and Northwest Iraq? Does it mean we go back in? That seems like sort of a silly solution to a problem that was caused by us going in the first place. And stimulating Al-Qaeda activity, stimulating the growth and development of Al-Qaeda in Iraq, who was then defeated and then created ISIS. That's a ridiculous course of action, and that's why what Chuck Hagel was saying there is kind of laughable. I think you could be right in what you're saying, but I do disagree with a couple of parts. I think that right now the reason that they have the support, that people are like sort of allying with themselves because of the victory, is not that people support at all what they say religiously. I don't think they support the religious fundamentalism in Iraq. It's just that they've been disenfranchised for so long that they think, well, look, it seems like they can possibly take over, and they're Sunnis as well, and so we'll ally with them. And while, as you say, possessing the territory does bring with it some advantages, in some cases oil, although the parts of Iraq that they possess are not the richest in terms of oil reserves, they now also have a massive responsibility to a huge number of people. And when they can't actually provide for them, when they are starved out by the international community, and even the limited amount of oil that they're able to drill might not be able to be sold internationally, which is, that's an open question, then I think their inability to provide for the expectations that the Sunnis that have now allied with them, I think that could long-term cause them major problems. And they have won some battles. I'm not going to say that they haven't won any, but sending in the 800 people, we portray it as them defeating the Iraqi army there, but they didn't. The Iraqi army fled because they had no interest in defending the territory. When they've actually fought an organized military force, like in North Iraq, when we've just trounced them with our airstrikes and things like that, they don't have the experience to stand against an organized army.
No. I disagree on several fronts. I agree in some parts. So when they went in with 800 guys in Mosul, yes, the Iraqi army ran. Part of the reason is they don't care about that area, and we talked about that a lot. But the other part of the reason is because the strategy of ISIS worked, which was scaring the bejesus out of them. So that's why they literally stripped down and threw away their uniforms on the highway as they were running out of town, okay? That means I am scared, I gotta get out of here, okay? That strategy worked. Second of all, they actually have won a major battle. They won against the Peshmerga. That's what scared the bejesus out of us. It wasn't just that we wanted to save the Yazidi. We're like, holy shit, the Kurdish Peshmerga, their militia, which is supposed to be badass, just got their ass kicked by ISIS. That's when we're like, send in the jets, okay? So they lost to us because we have fighter jets, and they were sitting at the bottom of a mountain exposed. So, of course, they were gonna lose in that situation, right? We have a massive advantage there. But once we go on the ground, we lose that advantage, right? So the answer is not going back in. We all agree with that. In fact, the fact that we bombed them is what has led them to both direct violence and threat of further violence against us.
Right.
Like everybody always says, like ISIS, they're like as if they attacked us. We have to remember, obviously we all hate ISIS. They're the most barbaric people we've seen in a long, long time, right?
Pros and cons.
Right. So now, but let's be accurate. we attacked them first. Okay. Now they were attacking our allies, and by the way, our enemies. They were fighting against Bashar Assad.
Yeah.
Now we're in such a panic. We're like, maybe we should help the dictator Assad who killed all those people in Syria, right? Like, because we're so scared of ISIS now, right? But we bombed them first when they were trying to kill the Yazidi, and I'm glad we bombed them. I think we were right to bomb them, but we did bomb them first. Then they behead James Foley, which still turns my stomach. I think about it, and they say now they put out a statement saying, "Oh, by the way, you will wash yourselves in your own blood. That's what we're going to do to you, okay? Because we're coming." So then that sends everybody here in a panic. That gets the neocons all excited, like, yes, another disastrous war that can only lead to more death and destruction, right? So what's the answer, right? Now we know how bad it is. There's got to be an answer, and the answer isn't ground troops. You want to take a crack at it? Or was that your earlier?
I think we can pretty much just box up local police departments who are already armed for war and send them to Iraq. They're ready to go.
That's a really good idea.
Very excited.
They're already militarized. Yeah.
They're raring to go. That's true.
Soon it'll be general, go fuck yourself.
So that's not such a bad idea. Okay, look, two things. One, we will not be able to accomplish, unfortunately. I think that doing a decapitation strike on al-Baghdadi, their leader, is the correct path. It might be... Now they killed Foley. He's an American citizen. You might have some legal justification for it. Before, we would have had no legal justification for it.
Not that the Obama
And if I was like, I know Obama doesn't care at all.
Yeah.
None of you. But if I was president, I might have pushed that button anyway and then resigned. Said I killed him. I shouldn't have killed him. It was an extrajudicial killing. ISIS never attacked us, but I had to do it. And I'll see you guys later. Okay. Now it doesn't matter. They killed Foley. It's a good enough excuse to go get him, right? Because al-Baghdadi, their leader, is really, really smart, okay? Now, that sucks for us. We haven't had an adversary this capable in a long, long time, right? So, but they will not be able to carry on without him in the ways that they are, okay? Now, the problem is what happened to the CIA? We used to have spies. We used to, remember all those movies, and we'd go into the KGB in Russia, and we'd do this, and then we'd do a poison pen, and the guy's dead, and we win, and yeah, where the hell are they, right? This is when we need the CIA. Get the fucking side ISIS. It's chaos there anyway. We don't have a single, Muslim American guy who can be brave enough to get in there. I've always been shocked that we couldn't get inside al-Qaeda enough to kill Zawahiri and bin Laden. Eventually we killed bin Laden, but from the outside, right? Yeah. But you gotta get somebody inside, you gotta find Baghdadi. Okay, now I don't think they're capable of doing that. So then you gotta, pursue a second strategy. I would do both strategies. I would do a massive humanitarian effort in the region. Now, I know the neocons of the world and the mainstream media are going to think, oh, how naive. This liberal's going to hand out roses. He's such an idiot. No, I just told you, for God's sake, kill their leader, okay? Otherwise, we're screwed, and this is going to grow and grow. No, they are winning in bizarre way hearts and minds, or ripping their hearts and minds out, right? We've got to go in there and be overwhelmingly good to the point where people go, wait a minute now, geez, why are we going with the beheading guys, right? Yeah. When these guys, every time my aunt got hurt, U.S. guys showed up, doctors showed up, right? Every time my kid needed a book, U.S. guys showed up and gave him a book, right? Every time I needed something, the U.S. was here for me. So like the Yazidi on top of that mountain with ISIS, you see, we already know it works. When a U.S. airplane started flying over Mount Sinjar, for the first time in anybody's memory, somebody in the Middle East looked up at an American airplane and said, thank God the Americans are here, right? And so if we could get the Middle East, and it's a long project, but if we can get the Middle East to say, thank God the Americans are here, which, by the way, they used to say during the Marshall Plan. That's why how we got to have this great brand of America and freedom and hope and opportunity, because we actually delivered that after World War II. We built up our enemies, Germany and Japan. They're our top allies now. We built up Turkey. We built up Greece. We did the Marshall Plan, and it worked. It was the most liberal thing in the world. It was the most practical thing in the world. It turned the whole world in favor of us instead of against us. So we got to endanger our lives. We got to spend a lot of money. We got to do whatever we got to do to make sure that when ISIS comes, people go, oh, God damn it, I hope the Americans help, right? And not help by bombing us from the sky indiscriminately, but actually help.
Yeah, I think that could totally work so long as we also put massive pressure on the Iraqi government to distribute political power more equitably.
Oh,
like
yeah.
so, like the gifts and everything that definitely could help spur economic growth and things like that. But if they still see the Iraqi government as inherently their enemies as opposed to potentially their saviors, I don't think long term I don't think it could do enough.
And be practical. So not just have the Iraqi government work with all the different Sunnis, Shiites, and Kurds and all the different sects, but honestly, realistically, probably break up the country. It's already broken up. Okay. Between Sunnis, Shiites, and Kurds. Be realistic about it, and we're already headed in that direction because we basically told the Kurds, okay, handle it, right? And we're going to help you handle it. And instead of giving military equipment to the Iraqi government, which then funnels it to you, we're just going to give it directly to you. Once we made that decision, it was already over. We had already decided Iraq's going to get split up, okay? Because we're not going through the Iraqi central government anymore. So I agree with that as well. So there's a lot of elements to this that you got to do right. Because I don't think we're going to get Baghdadi. I think they're going to grow. I think they are going to be a fearsome force. And I'm really afraid of what happens next if they get beyond Iraq and Syria. Those two countries are in chaos. If they go to a third country that is not currently in chaos and create that chaos, then we're off to the races, and we do really have a massive problem. And then if our neocons react by bombing them, meaning, oops, we bombed a lot of your civilians too, you're only going to help them. You're going to help them, and then we're really fucked, right?
Or if they get too hungry, if they get too overambitious, and they start to push into the borders of a more organized, more sound, structurally sound country like a Saudi Arabia or an Iran, they could find themselves up against a military that they can't take out with their guerrilla tactics that have worked in war-torn Iraq.
Well, so
Like both of those
all right,
militaries are more than.
We're going to test out my theory about whether al-Baghdadi is as smart as I think he is, okay? Because you go to Iran and you're going to reap the whirlwind, okay?
Yeah.
Iran is a giant country with a significant military. They're Shiite. They don't like you anyway, soon because ISIS is Sunni, right? If you go into Turkey, it's a NATO country, blah, 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 and they have a giant army. I mean, look, if you pull NATO in, it might actually help you in some ways, but you're messing with a really strong force. Saudi Arabia is full of shit. They can't fly those jets, okay? They buy all this military equipment from the US. They don't know what they're doing with it, okay? If they go into Saudi Arabia, they will make massive advances fairly quickly, okay? When they do, we will go in guns blazing. You think Israel's our top ally? You think Britain's our top ally? Canada? No, it's Saudi Arabia. They're the ones that provide the oil. That's why we let them get away with murder, sometimes literally, right? Sometimes 9/11, right? So if they go into Saudi Arabia, we will go in guns blazing. We'll be back in the Middle East with ground troops, and then we fell right into their trap. Now they turn to all the Sunnis in the Middle East, go, here, see, here's the Americans again. And they want to take your Holy Land from you. They're going to occupy Saudi Arabia. They're going to occupy Mecca, okay? My God, the Americans are here. All the Sunnis of the world unite. Look, we already beat them. We're already halfway to Mecca. You got to help us. And then here comes whoever was going to get radicalized, gets radicalized, and we are in the middle of a shitstorm we haven't seen in a long, long time.